out, you know what I mean?
I've been working on getting everything cleaned up, kind of getting an idea where it's going to sit. I got more cut out so the intercooler pipe and stuff on both sides now can come through both ends. I should be able to take a piece of pipe up and snake it around. Of course, this thing ain't worth a fuck except for anything on an F-body. If I put it on here, same thing as problem before. Alternator pulley sits right here, it's in the way. Can't go that way because then I'd have to make a complete U-turn to come all the way back. It's kind of worthless, not worth doing. I had the manifolds flopped around to where they come out up top right here because I was thinking I was going to have an issue with getting clear past this and on the other side. But then I'm like, it just puts a lot of heat and a lot of stuff up, and now I've got to like try and find a way to come up into the turbo. I think what I'm going to try and do is, excuse me, I'm going to try and cut the top more of this off and back, and then take a piece of maybe like a 90-degree pipe and lay it across the top of this and merge it to where it comes up right about here, so it'll come right past that. It's either that or this side will get a flipped upside down top, you know, manifold, or the other side, got lucky, so it's really close to the rack. Because again, this one was like up here, and I'm like, man, that's gonna be like a pain trying to take it down and get it around the front and underneath everything. So I was able to flip, this was the other side, I was able to flip this one. If I could get another one like that, it'd be perfect for the other side. I was able to cut the heat shield off. It clears the steering rack almost perfect. So I'm going to take and I'm just going to massage this whole section down right here just to give me some more room and some more clearance. And should be good on the steering rack portion of it. Then it'll point right down through here. So I'll have it pointed right towards the ground. I'll do all my power steering away from it, wrap it up in some heat wrap, yada yada, and that'll be done. So then I can go down and come across the bottom, and then I'll come up through here somewhere to merge to the collector. I just need to figure out how I'm going to get this side. This is the only side I'm kind of curious about what I'm going to do. So like I said, I've got the option of trying to cut the top skin off of it and then just lay a piece of pipe on top of it to merge it. And then it'll basically lay across that pipe, come all the way down, and then I'll chop this top half up to where I can sit it up in it, so the pipe will sit like this up against it, and then like that, and then of course it'll be a bend, but still, that's like, it's cutting it really close to those AC lines. So I might just end up with one you know, flipped upside down manifold. I like this option though, because I probably can snake a 3-inch exhaust by that. Let's see. Some 3 I got. Should be. I know I can sneak it under with the manifold flipped. I don't think it's gonna work like this. So this one's gonna have to be a flipped upside down manifold, for the simple fact of when it's upside down, I've got all this room to run the downpipe down and under, so I can run the downpipe underneath the manifold. So this one's gonna have to be flipped up also. Find another, was a passenger side manifold. Hopefully I've got one somewhere that's still in decent shape. Ooh. That one's not anywhere close to correct. This is one, showed anything on it, but this is exactly what I'm looking for. Just really dirty. So this will go back in there. Pull that one off real quick. I gotta order, I think I'm gonna go down to like a 2 schedule 10 pipe. I just want something kind of thick. 16 gauge I feel like might not be thick enough you know, to worry about cracking and carrying the weight of the turbo, because the plan is eventually to put an 80 on it, and the 80s I've seen from VS Racing are much larger than this. 7875 from On 3 is tiny. So I know the 80 sitting in here, it'll fit for the most part. should tuck in here, making the downpipe work. It looks like I can get by, but I might have to oval up the, a 3-inch or 3.5 inch to get it down and out. But the crossover, I think the plan is to do 2-inch, like I said, schedule 10, because it's going to be 2 1/4. But the schedule 10, the wall thickness is like 1/8 inch, so it's huge. So 1/8 inch wall thickness on each end, so that's a 1/4 inch total to a 2-inch already, so it's 2 1/4. So I'm going to do 2 1/4 V-bands, 2-inch schedule 10 pipe, stainless 304. So 2-inch is going to be smaller, but it's going to be small enough that I should be able to snake it down and around all this, come down around, go under, come up, and then, of course, this will sit up a little bit higher, but I'll be able to come up and into the bottom. And then this one, I'm going to be able to take and make a pie cut, come around like this, and go around the radiator hose, hopefully. I'm going to have to find a way to merge it into one single piece of pipe. That way I could run the wastegate just off of that, or I'm going to have to run 2 wastegates, or I'm going to have to cut a hole in this sucker and weld it to this. I'd rather just weld it to the pipe. But we'll get there when we get there, and see what we come up with at that point. So I'm waiting on pipe and stuff to come in for this. So the next thing I'll probably work on with this is working on pulling the old harness through and in. So I'm going to start pulling the interior part, get that out, and then work on figuring out where I'm going to lay this harness. So for the time being, I can go ahead and get fuel rail, injector set on it, get that plugged, get the harness laid on it, figure out what I'm going to do fuel system wise. It's probably just got to be an inline pump of some sort. So get my fuel pump, figure it out, fuel system ran up here, harness laid across it, figure out what these cut wires are, because I don't know where this harness came from, honestly. It's another F-body harness, apparently. I don't know where it came from. I just looked on the wall one day and I was like, okay, I put a harness up here. I thought it was a truck harness. Like, where did I get another F-body harness? There's like bits and pieces, like O2 sensor chopped off, some other wires over there chopped off. So I don't know where it came from. But plan is I'm going to use this harness, use a blue-green, I think that's what it is, or does a green-red? Blue-green. Blue-red. Red. Not bad. Blue-red ECU. One of them. P59 or P01, whatever I've got out of the stack of ECUs I have. Over yonder in that corner over there, there's a stack of PCMs in the back corner, and then the stack of them. So we'll get to that bridge when we cross it, but I'd like to get this thing to where it's really close to firing up. Those are the basics. If I can fire it up, okay, it runs, sweet, this works. I'll finish all the hot side stuff, start the intercooler piping stuff, figure the radiator hoses out. I gotta finish welding everything and get a drive shaft made. So I gotta finish welding all the motor mounts, transmission mounts. I think I've got enough room. I need to double check again on the back tail housing, make sure I have room for a drive shaft, but everything's looking promising. Alright, so we picked up these fittings the other day and some fuel hose finally. So the 8AN fuel line I had no fittings for. So by the time I went and bought fittings and then bought some 6 and then figured a way to get the stuff to braze on the fittings myself, I'd end up spending just as much money for a lot more work for, something that's not going to make as much power as they can support. I've seen guys with these stock truck rails, stock fuel lines on a truck. They make plenty of power. So I'm not going to ever need, above 800 horsepower. This turbo maxed out would be pushing that. It had to be on like a Race 385. So it's not a big deal. So I went ahead and just picked up, O'Reilly's carries these as a 3/8, and I had the 5/16 version. They clip right on the factory fuel rails, and they got a barb fitting on them. So you just take some rubber fuel hose, run it, and you're good to go. So I've got that run to the back. I got to figure out where I'm going to cut and put my fuel filter at, and then I got to get the old lines off the frame rails. So get the old lines off the frame rails and start working on mounting them up to the to the frame, and then figure out where I'm gonna mount this sucker at, and then tank dropped and get those. Those should slide right on where the stock lines went, so it'll make life a lot easier. I'll probably try and mount this back there where the factory inline pump and fuel filter go. So I'm gonna go ahead, crawl underneath here, and see if I can go ahead and start sucking these old lines off the wall. Alright, so we got got the tank bolts out. Everything so far come up pretty easy. I gotta take this tin and get this filler neck off up here. And then should be ready to roll. Get this tank dropped. So I can get this bigger fuel pump in it and get these lines on it. Not a lot of room. I just assume myself. Oh, come on. Not a lot of room at all. So I'll go and finish getting this thing out and I'll show you guys when I get the tank dropped what we're looking at. So this is what we're working with right now. I can't. So I've got my knees holding it. Got it out, pick up, or out the fill tube. But the dilemma is I can't see or tell how that's connected up there to get it off, and I can't find the other end up there to pull it out, so I'm gonna have to cut it, unfortunately, while I'm trying to steady this thing on my knees. So trying to figure out a way to get that out without cutting it, but it doesn't look like there's going to be an option, and I can't get to it up there quickly, so I'm just going to get it dropped. I'm just going to snip it and rewire it anyways. Alright, so we got the sending unit out, figured out which wires were which. There's a little tab that holds that plastic piece onto that, which you can see right there, and that also acts as the ground strap because there's 3 wires that come in, but only 2 come down. The gray one on the Volvo harness goes to the sending unit. The black one is the power on the other side of that, and then the ground, which is the brown, comes in, goes through that, and then of course the pump was grounded to the frame of the sender, so the whole body grounds up through the pump that way. But the way we're gonna do it is I'm gonna drill a little bit bigger of a hole, one big enough. One big enough for this little bulkhead. It's a nitrous fitting, but I'm going to drill that out a little bit bigger, put this in it, tighten it down, put the wires through it, and then fill it with RTV. And that should seal it off, keep it good, and dry, no fumes getting out. And then it'll give me the ability to run my wires through it without having to get crazy. So I'm gonna clean the top of this thing off, get it drilled out, get it ready to put the bulkhead on it, and then slide this. Got a new piece of hose, got this Aeromotive 340 pump, which was an oddball one because if you look at the bottom, so someone bought it for a car that I was doing. If you look at the bottom, look how big the bottom of that thing is. It's huge. Most of the times the bottoms like that are a little bit smaller, because if you look at Honda's DSMs, they've got like a little rubber thing that goes around the bottom like this, sits around the actual sock where it goes, it comes out, and then that's what helps hold the pump up. This one didn't have it. This one's so big it wouldn't fit around it, so it wasn't usable. So I used one of my 300-liter prior pumps I had laying around, kept this one. I was like, I'll use it one day. And what do you know? Perfect for this, because this doesn't have that piece at the bottom. This just sits like that and hangs out the bottom. So this is going to be perfect. I measured it. If I set this flat on something, I set the stock one flat, and it was 10 3/4 from the base to the edge of this. So I'm gonna match that up, put a piece of hose on it, and we are gonna let it ride. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my hole drilled out here. Got the pump attached. I'm gonna trim the excess of this off, but got it on there. It ain't going nowhere. It's not moving. It sits at 10 3/4 inches. Sits at 10 3/4 inches. It's not going nowhere. It's not moving at all. For So from the base to there, 10 3/4, just like the stock one sat if I set it just like this. So it should pick up just the same. If not, I can always cut a little bit of hose off and move it up a little bit. But this should work. I've got the bulkhead tight, not going nowhere. You can see there's still room in there. So we're going to fill all this up with RTV. So I'm going to take and just fill this with RTV and let it sit overnight and harden. And then I will have me a sealed surface. Or sealed hole. So it don't leak, no vapors, no fuel, no nothing crazy. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this up with some RTV. Got the gas tank hanging out here drying. A little coat of paint on it. Use the VHT epoxy paint. You usually put it on like suspension and chassis stuff. Prevent it from corroding and salt getting to it. It's rust and salt resistant. No primer needed. All weather. Good to 250 degrees. So I sprayed that on the tank. Wire wheeled it. Just ready to roll. I've got everything else pretty much ready. I gotta drill a hole up here on this thing, but I've got the fuel filter mounted. Hard to see if you can see it or not. I got it mounted up there on top of that pedestal, right where the stock fuel filter or fuel pump goes. I use the same clamp. It doesn't quite squeeze all the way, but I mean it's tight, but it won't butt together to put a bolt in it. But it's bolted down, it's not going anywhere. Now I just need to drill a hole in the front for the line, put the line on, clamp it down, and then figure out what I'm gonna do as far as, I'm gonna have to pull the other old line out, which is a hard line, surprisingly. The other one's like plastic. It's really weird. So I need to get that knocked out. I got some other stuff got to get in here tomorrow. So the Volvo's got to get buttoned up enough to get it out. So I'm gonna put the fuel tank back in it. A fuel pump back in the tank, get the tank back in the Volvo, get my lines ran, tightened up, ready to roll, to where all I have to do is just drop the tank enough to wire it. Need to wire up a relay. I'm gonna run a hard wire all the way up through, like a thicker gauge, like a 10 or 12 or something, some thicker gauge wire. I've got a little spool of something over here. Is this it? Yeah, I got this. This is what I'll probably run front to back. I do not know what this is to. I'll probably use this power wire, run it all the way back, and then I could use the ground for something else later. Got the gas tank finished up. Got my wires ran. Everything's ready to roll, so we're going to shove it back up in there. Alright, got everything ready to go up. I got the cinder wire, and I don't know, so I assume that the power goes to the ECU, and the ECU triggers the fuel pump, so I'm not going to try and use that as the trigger wire. I'll run my own trigger wire back for the relay. Got it hanging here. I've got just a clip that I could set up for the sending unit, so I can, disconnect it coming down the relay. I'm going to put it up and through that hole right there, so it'll be on the back side over here. Alright, so got a cutout, got the other side cut out. I cut the tabs off the condenser. I was able to slide it forward quite a bit because the old condenser used those bolt holes, which the tabs were like really far up front, so the condenser set about here, which left a gap about that much. So there wasn't a whole lot of room to put an intercooler in here. So now I've shaved. This used to come across like this and then curve over and meet that right there, like a swoop. I cut all that out. I can tuck the intercooler down in there now. And it looks like I put the headlights in, and this whole bottom section looks like it was going to be all right if I trim that out to be able to get the intercooler pipe snuck back behind the headlights. So we've got that cut out now. I'm gonna go take grinder. I'm gonna go ahead and trim up and smooth out a lot of this stuff real quick, because I don't want to slice my hand open, because this metal is very sharp and I don't want to fillet myself. Got her spaced in there. Of course, this will come up some, so I need to trim that off. And of course, I got my marker sitting here, so another marker. All the way up, around. Let's come all the way up like that. Same thing over here. Let's go all the way up, like a 90. Might be able to cut that with that still in there still. Let me see if I can get it with a little baby saw.